Welcome to my presentation on Cartesian dualism, or more importantly, the interaction problem within it. How is it that something that doesn't have any physical properties, i.e. doesn't exist in space, has no extension, and has no mass, can interact causally with something that is physically extended and has mass? Also, how is it that thoughts in the mind, which have absolutely no physical properties, can causally bring about actions in a physical body? Just like the yin and the yang pictured here, two sides distinctly different yet similarly the same, making up a whole circle. Dualism, simply put, is the belief that something is composed of two fundamentally different components. Cartesian dualism, coined by Descartes, deals specifically with the dual existence of man. Descartes believed that a man consisted of matter, the physical stuff that walks, talks, and plays sports, and mind, the non-physical substance, sometimes equated with the soul, that thinks, doubts, and remembers. It is important to remember that for Descartes, the brain and the mind are not the same thing. The brain, pictured on the right, does in no way show an area that you would think would be comprised of the soul, which I have somewhat pictured here on top. The brain serves in part as a connection between the mind and the body, but it is physical and changeable. It is not the actual mind. The mind is whole and indivisible, whereas the body can be changed. On the picture on the left, you could cut your hair, remove your appendix, or even lose a limb, but that loss in no way reduces your mind. The mind simply pulls the levers of the body to do its bidding. Exactly how the non-physical mind interacts with the physical body is a point of contention. Like the laws of nature, Descartes explains how the body can be made to perform in unconscious functions. He then goes on into a long discussion of these involuntary functions like the circulatory system, the sensory organs, and the movement of muscles, and how these can be performed unconsciously like the laws of nature. Unlike these functions, our mind, he states, can be explained by these means, and he suggests that our rational soul is a gift from God. This soul and its thought processes are distinct from other creatures and is what sets us apart from other life forms in the world. To really get into Cartesian dualism, you have to begin with existence and reality. These are the basis of whether we actually exist, and to be able to talk about Cartesian dualism, you have to actually realize that you do exist. If you take anything about humanity and strip it apart, the two things that remain are, do we exist and what is reality? I think, therefore I am. This is one of the most famous quotes of all time, and I have always found the thought of existence very interesting. I actually have a problem sometimes questioning too much of why, or is this real, or do we really exist? I find this to be interesting because to me, I think so much that I can think myself into a state of non-existence. This contradicts Descartes' deductive reasoning that because he thinks, then he exists. Many people liken this to an out-of-body experience. Even Descartes says, but on what grounds could one deny that these hands and this entire body are mine, unless perhaps I were to liken myself to the insane? Many people would say that someone who questions their reality and the existence of themselves is insane. I would have to say this is not the sign of insanity, though. I suffer from anxiety and obsessive thoughts. Many people like myself fear that they are going insane because they question things around them at many times. The distinct difference is that the insane person does not question what they see or how they live. That is their reality. An insane person does not know that they are insane, so they cannot question what the real reality is. The thought of existence is something that goes back to the beginning of time and is the basis for theology. Humans sought to explain what this all is and everything around us and why we are here. The answer was creation. The quote that struck me the most from Descartes' argument for the existence of God was, "I have in me an idea of God. This idea has infinite objective reality." I've always had a fascination with religion. When we are in our darkest, deepest places, even those who do not believe in God seek a higher power for help. Is this because we have grown up with these influences and are indoctrinated with the idea of a higher power being something that helps us, so that our mind automatically turns to it for help? Or is it something we are born with because there is a higher power, and that is what creates our existence? Descartes gives us 5 causes for existence. 1. Myself. 2. My always having existed. 3. My parents. 4. Something less perfect than God. And 5. God. I would have to agree with these causes. They are the same ones that I think of when I am contemplating existence, and I am not a religious person. But yet, like I said before, at times I seek a higher being. Descartes sought to doubt everything that could be doubted to hopefully arrive at a basic, undeniable truth, which resulted in his famous "I think, therefore I am." Descartes could doubt the existence of the physical world around him, and even that his body actually existed, but he could not doubt that his mind existed. For this action is a thought process, and the very act of doubting one's existence proves they exist, otherwise who is the one who is doing the doubting? One of the most important points of Cartesian dualism is to think about the real distinction. And for Descartes, his real distinction is the proof of the body being distinct from the mind. Now previously in his meditations he proved that he existed because God created him, so now he goes on to proving that the body is distinct from the mind using God as a launching point. There's 8 separate parts to this. 1. It is possible for God to create anything I can clearly and distinctly perceive. 2. If God creates something to be independent of another, they are distinct from each other. 3. I clearly and distinctly understand my existence as a thinking thing, which does not require the existence of a body. 4. So God can create a thinking thing independently of a body. 5. I clearly and distinctly understand my body as an extended thing, which does not require a mind. 6. So God can create a body independently of a mind. 7. So my mind is a reality distinct from my body. 8. So I, a thinking thing, can exist without a body. Photo here shows a man, which would represent the soul or the mind, watching a TV screen inside of a normal man's head. This would represent the distinction between the mind and the body that Descartes talks about in his Cartesian dualism, that the two things are distinctly separate, that our mind and our soul are not a physical object like our body, that you can cut, distort, do different things to your limbs, your organs, but that your mind remains separate and unharmed when doing this. Like a captain in its ship, so too is our body and our soul/mind. We have control over most all aspects of it, and when we need it, we can turn on autopilot. Unlike a captain in his ship, though, most of our bodily functions are done subconsciously. Hey everybody, just wanted to add a little part here. webcam sort of version. To sum up my presentation, get away a little bit from basically the nuts and bolts of what we've all learned about Descartes over the past few weeks, and kind of just give a little take on what I thought of Cartesian dualism and the exact question of the interaction problem, and how something that doesn't have any physical properties, like our mind or our soul, doesn't exist in space. Technically, you can't find it inside the mass of the body. How that can interact causally with something that does physically extend and has mass, such as the body. I mean, just me sitting here talking to you guys is that causal interaction of something that's non-physical and according to Descartes sets us apart from all other beings on the planet, that we can actually think, therefore we are, that this process sets us apart and creates what it means to be a human being, and kind of gets us into that whole argument of the interaction problem as to how can something that doesn't have any physical property control the body. I don't think that there's a way that you could actually really state that anything really exists. I mean, like I've stated before, I deal with anxiety and constantly am thinking about my surroundings and whether this is real. What is this pencil really made out of? I mean, I'm taught that it's made out of wood and metal and lead and all this kind of stuff. But what if I'm in a different realm or different existence, and my mind is just playing tricks on me, and this is actually made out of something completely different, and that I've just been indoctrinated and brought up to believing that that's what that is. I mean, like he says that with a triangle, we can with our mind visually see what a triangle is and know what a triangle is. And then if you think about something that has greater sides that you can't even visually think about, you know that it has that many sides to it, but you can't visually perceive it. I think that another thing that's very interesting is how he explains that while our bodies are physical, and if you cut off a limb or do something like that, that our mind is completely distinct from that, and that you can't hurt the mind. Well, I think that if you cut off a limb, or something happens to you physically, I think that does alter the mind, does alter our soul. I think it alters our perception of life. It alters how our mind can interact with our body. I mean, people who are have limbs taken off can still move those appendages, or have sensations that those appendages are still there, and their mind can still somewhat control them, but the mind knows that that's not there. It knows that it has to rely on other aspects to get through daily life. Eventually your mind's gonna know that hey, I only have one leg. I'm gonna get up in the morning. I'm not gonna try and put weight on both my legs. I'm gonna use something to help it. Your mind is altered. So I think saying that I think that there has to be some sort of connection between the two, and that it's not that it's a two-way street, that it's not just your mind controlling your body. I think your body also controls your mind. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation on Cartesian dualism. I know some of it I hope wasn't too dry and just based off of a lot of the material that we've gone over, but I think that it's a great thing to really expand our minds and think about all these crazy things out there. And a lot of times people may think you're insane or crazy for expressing thoughts on these different things, but just remember that guys like Descartes have made I guess I don't know, a living's the right word for it, but they've made a name for themselves, and people now make a living off of working through problems like that, or working with people that question that. And a lot of it has to do with being even more highly intellectual, and not just going through your daily life, but actually thinking about what all this is. So hope you guys enjoy my presentation, and thanks for your time.